Jackie, can you explain why you were missing from the last episode?
I was sick. I woke up. So this is I was telling Matt when you were away, Pat. So I woke up today not feeling good. I hadn't been feeling super great last night, but I didn't say anything because I was like, I just want to make it through the day, and hopefully this will just resolve itself. I don't want to cause a false alarm for recording and stuff. So anyway, so I was working, and then after work, I got done with work at like 6, a little after 6. I lay down at 6:30. I was like, I'm going to take a quick nap. Alarm is set for 6:50. And when that alarm went off at 6:50, I was like, I am dead. I am dead, and there's no resurrection. But then I did resurrect. Yeah. And then I woke up again at like 7:30, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit more alive.
Rezzed up like Mercy.
Yeah, sometimes you just have a Mercy girlfriend, and it really does work in your favor.
Oh,
Actually, you know what? None of that was a lie. None of that was true. I mean, I was actually just.
None of it was a lie. I mean, none of it was true.
I mean, hold on. None of it was true. I was actually at a slip and slide party sponsored by Pat's Lube brand. And I was all lubed up so I could go down the slip and slide and not get any, like, accidental, like, burns, So your hole don't hurt.
So your hole don't hurt.
Okay. That was actually Sam's 30th birthday party. Was the slip and slide party.
Oh shit. Well, it's all been a blur.
Yeah. Where did Pat go? What?
I literally was bent. I bent over to like.
It did not look like that. Your Wi-Fi must have cut out because literally
I clipped.
You were here 1 second and then you were just gone.
It literally like you were glitched just and gone. You were gone.
I was my foot. I was just scratching my foot. Fuck.
I got scared.
That was so funny. That was
so fucking funny.
So Matt, what depressing shit do you have to talk to us about today?
Well, first of all, hello. No, not that. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the What Do the Gays Think podcast, a podcast where we, the gays, discuss the latest and greatest and not so greatest topics in pop culture, politics, and anything and everything gay. Today with me, I have my very hot co-host, Pat. How are you doing, Pat?
I think Jackie's hotter with that fever.
Well, tomato.
I'm fine. You and I just spoke because we just recorded the previous episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the podcast listeners, this will be a 2-week split between these two episodes.
You want to see my 2-week split? I changed shirts to keep it fresh for the YouTube.
Oh, I'm wearing the same shirt.
Well, it's okay.
You're his judgy tone.
I said that's okay. Jackie, do you have a tattoo on your arm?
Yeah.
How long is that going to last?
Permanent.
It's not permanent. It's temporary, bitch.
No, it is temporary. It is from.
That.
Hold on. Wait, where's my camera? It's from Sam's 30th.
Yeah, look at the arm too. The arm muscles.
And then I did have one on my chest. But
I thought you were just gonna
fucking tits out. No, I did have one on my chest. It was like a tiger. It was really cool. But that one's faded. But I also did have ink box.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
That I had gotten separately.
This one, love that.
Where is that? Yeah,
I saw it. Yeah, we saw it.
Yeah, but this one's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say Jackie is also here, my sexy co-host, Jackie. Oh. How are you, Jackie? Besides being sick,
I'm good. Yeah. So good. Yep.
Not doing good.
not doing the best, but I did just move, so I'm very happy to be here and have our fun little shit show.
So you saw me in the bathroom.
I saw what you were doing with that dildo.
There was a lot of shit, girl.
Slip and slide.
Well, listen, if anyone is new joining this podcast episode to listen to the more serious topic that we're about to talk about, we apologize. This is our usual energy of like gay shenanigans and chaos up front. But this episode will probably be a little bit more serious. So if you're a new listener, you're just here for this episode, just know if you go and listen to our other episodes, it'll be an entirely different kind of energy. So just watch. It'll be more like the first 5 minutes that you just listened to for the entire time. So go listen to those other podcast episodes if you're there for that chaotic energy. So this episode, we did send out a survey because as part of now What Do the Gays Think, we're actually asking other people in the gay community and the LGBTQ community at large what they think so that we can get their opinions up on the podcast. If you want to be part of our survey panel, just go to whatdothegaysthink.com and there you can sign up and join our panel for when we send out these fun little surveys.
I thought that was soju.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
I was like
I got to prepare mentally for this. Here we go.
Getting drunk on the pod? As I've been high on the pod multiple times.
I was going to say, we both have.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to provide a little bit of context. We haven't talked about this on the podcast yet. We've been missing for a little bit of a while. On February 8th of 2024, in Owasso High School in Oklahoma, a 16-year-old non-binary student named Nex Benedict died one day after a fight broke out in the school bathroom. Nex had reportedly been the victim of incessant school bullying leading up to the fight that had been going on for over a year. In the fight, 3 teenage girls teamed up on Nex, leaving them with bruises and scratches on their face and head, even reportedly having their heads smashed into the bathroom floor. The school did not call an ambulance or the police, according to Nex's grandmother, who transported them there later. But the next day, after they had been released from the hospital, the next day, Nex collapsed at their home and was again transported to the hospital, but was declared dead. And now, over a month later, the police department released an autopsy report, which claims that they died from suicide and not from their injuries in the fight. I have a question before we go into our survey. I have a question for the two of you. It had seemed for a while that discrimination against the LGBTQ community had been on the downturn, like coming to the end of the 2010s, like into the 2020s. However, it seems that in recent years, society has almost regressed in views. Now, I just have a general question. What do we think is the primary reason for this like regression in societal view?
It's mostly towards trans people, honestly. Like, obviously, there's still like the drag queens are groomers and gay people are pedophiles sometimes, but it's mostly towards the trans community, and that's just because the right, conservative, or Republican group, or any combination therein, needs another group to demonize to draw its voters. So it just has picked the most vulnerable, which obviously right now is just trans people and non-binary people. So that's just what's on the menu right now for these people.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you think, Jackie?
I would agree with that. I think especially a lot of it was probably pre-existing, but I think when we saw Trump rise to power and create a platform based on, fear-mongering and scapegoating, it brought a lot of those people to light and emboldened their beliefs and decisions. And it's just, I think we're still, within that spiral.
Yeah, and I don't know where I saw this. It was some video going over like how history of society progresses. Mm-hmm. Society almost has these cycles of like going progressive and then regress and then more progressive. And it kind of goes like up and down and back and forth. Over time, it still like is more progressive over time, but there's always those dips, and it kind of comes and goes in these cycles. So I'm hoping that right now we're in that kind of downturn of the cycle, and then it will come back up eventually.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So after this event happened, we sent out a survey. To our panel, we've been building like a panel of LGBTQ plus individuals, obviously to answer the age-old question of what do the gays think. So we sent out a survey. We collected 137 responses from our panel. So love that for our panel. Thank you, everyone who responded. And I did supplement that with 60 additional responses from SurveyMonkey. So we had a total of 196 responses. In the survey, we asked about the events surrounding Nex Benedict's death, how they learned about it, how they felt about it, how it impacted them. This happened between February 29th and March 6th of 2024. This was before that autopsy report came out. saying that Nex's death was due to suicide. It was basically a month after it happened, but the tensions were still high. So we're going to go over the results of that survey today and discuss the implications as well as our general outlook of the situation. So we've got a lot to cover. Strap in, but I know Pat's on a time crunch or Pat's got a hard stop, so I'm hoping to go quickly.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. All right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is how the media kind of deals with these types of events, these types of tragedies. One of the bigger criticisms circulating around this death was how the mainstream media was portraying it. So first question for the two of you. Before I brought this to you as a potential topic, had you heard about Nex's death before? And if you had, where did you learn that from?
I did not hear about it. I remember you asking about it, and I had not heard of it. But then shortly after, I think I did see a brief, cable news coverage of Nex's death.
I saw it all over TikTok the day it happened, and then following, because I guess my TikTok algorithm was like, "You like queer stuff?
Get ready to get depressed."
Yeah, no, I just saw it all over TikTok. So I saw the day, or the day after it happened, and then I saw more about when the autopsy report came out and how that all shook out. But I saw a lot of it.
Yeah. So I asked our survey respondents if they had heard of this event before. So 86% of people that went into the survey said that they were at least somewhat aware of the events surrounding the death. So this is a very plugged in group of people who are probably more engaged in this news cycle. And 68% of respondents said that they first heard about it on social media.
Yeah.
But only 12% said they first heard about it on local or national news. So Jackie, you would be in that 12%, interestingly enough.
I am, and I do have a theory behind that.
Go ahead.
Well, my theory was just going to be, will be a huge shocker. I'm not on a lot of social media.
What?
I know, me, especially TikTok. And I tend to be around cable TV news. So I think, it was just on, and I happened to pick up on it being covered by Philly news or something.
Okay.
Did you have anything else to say to Pat?
I mean, I think obviously more younger people are not watching the news in general. I don't think people, especially our generation or younger, I don't think people are watching TV as much in terms of channels and shit.
Yeah.
They're watching subscription services, they're playing their video games, they're on their TikTok.
That's
what, and especially queer people, because I feel like there's no queer-centric news network. They're not going to watch the news. They're going to get most of their news from social media, from people they follow, or from just on their algorithm. So it's not surprising that most people saw it on social media, and that more than half already knew that this was a thing because they just were scrolling online.
Yeah, and bear in mind that we did recruit most of these people for this survey from social media, so a lot of these people are probably more plugged into social media. There's probably some bias there. But I get the feeling that, and here's another question we could ask is, do you think that this story would have gotten the attention that it did if social media were not a thing? It's making me think about the TikTok ban. And I'm like, well, if TikTok wasn't a thing, would this story have become the national story that it became eventually?
I think yes, because if TikTok doesn't exist, people will just post on it elsewhere. I think social media in general helps push these stories to the forefront. I think if we didn't have social media, then no, this thing would have been a local news thing and it would have been dead and no one would have been listening to it.
Yeah, I think there is. I agree with Pat, because I think there is a lot of attention that is kind of a lot of news space is reserved in a very sad way for young people's deaths, especially in the school age, So I think it would have been covered, but I don't know if it would have had the same traction. And I do wonder too, how much it would have been covered that Nex was non-binary. it could have been overwritten, if it were just covered by TV news, TV media, etc. So probably not.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of that, we did actually ask a question in the survey. We said, how much do you agree with this statement? And the statement was the mainstream media is doing a good job of covering these events.
Oh.
Only 19% of respondents said that they agreed, and 61% disagreed. So people are feeling
What
that
about
the
the rest?
mainstream. They were probably somewhere in between the neither agree nor disagree.
Oh, this was not one or the other. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
There is an in between option. So what this is telling me, at least from my perspective, is that like the mainstream media wasn't doing the best job covering this, but after social media kind of picked up on it and blew it up, then the more international news or national or international news picked it up and started running with the story a little bit more. And it just makes me think about like how LGBTQ topics are circulated in general. I don't think the mainstream media does a very good job of circulating LGBTQ stories, whereas social media does that a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my 2 cents, though.
No, yeah, I think.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when it comes to queer shit, of course.
Yeah, it's essentially a minority group with views that are highly politicized right now. So yeah,
Like I don't turn on BET for white people. I don't turn on the news for queer content. Like they're just there.
I turn on BET to laugh at white people because it's always just a fun time.
Right.
Yes. And that's just what. Yeah, I don't turn on the news to see queer shit. I know it's either going to be completely misrepresented or not present. So I mean, girl, get on TikTok, which get on while you can because it might be banned.
Speaking of these types of events and how different systems kind of view them and portray them, we also asked another question similar. Did you agree or disagree? The police investigating these events are doing a good job. 12% agreed and 61% disagreed. So kind of a similar breakdown there. But just, in general, it doesn't seem like people don't think that the mainstream media was covering this very well. And they also don't think that the police are doing a good job of investigating it. Just makes me wonder, like, what does this tell us about how the justice systems of our country are kind of working for LGBTQ people?
Is there, besides them being cops, period, is there a reason why they feel that the investigation was lacking?
Going back to when this survey was being done, about a month ago, it had almost seemed like the police were not really investigating, at least from my perspective, viewing the event. Of course, more after the national outcry, I feel like the police were kind of pushed into investigating further. That's the way I perceived the event, but I'm not sure about you, Pat.
I think there is an inherent... Any minority group probably has an inherent distrust of any police institutionalized form of that nature, and they should. And she should say it.
And she should.
And she should. I think so. Any sort of group is going to be like, well, wait, let's dot the I's, cross the T's. Let's really make sure this was done correctly, especially given that they died literally the next day. Was it literally the next day? Yeah. So it's sort of like this big thing just happened. They just died. There's got to be more here. So I think it's always good to really, as the cops should, investigate things thoroughly. There is a history in this country of maybe that not always happening, but this may not be that case, because from what I've seen so far, I haven't seen anything. But then again, I'm not a police person. I'm not a journalist. I can't follow the story completely because I don't even know where to find it, because of the fact that it's on social media. It's so sort of nebulous sometimes. You see content and then it vanishes.
Yeah.
So I'm not following it very closely as I should, or as I'd like to, for a variety of reasons. But from what I saw, I didn't immediately think to myself, There's a cover up. I didn't immediately think there's something wrong here, but it's definitely suspicious. So I'm just saying, get a second opinion. Go to another autopsy person. Go get a second opinion from someone else. Have an investigation opened. Whatever. Just make sure we thoroughly validate what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like at this point I'm less suspect of the police trying to cover something up that I am like that the school needs to be held a lot more accountable and
Yeah.
should be subject to a lot more scrutiny over the police.
Well, let's talk about it. So, taking accountability is actually a lot of. We asked a lot of questions about this because I feel like when these tragedies occur, a lot of people will want to jump in and blame someone. And that's not always necessarily a bad thing. We all want closure. We want the right people to be held accountable for their actions. So let's go into what some people said. Again, this was like a month after this event had happened, so it was still kind of a tenuous time. So 91% of our respondents said that in general, schools are not doing enough to protect LGBTQ plus students. And 87% of respondents said that the school administration should be held accountable for Nex's death. So almost everybody is saying, at least at this point during the survey, almost everyone's saying that the school administration should be held accountable. Now, I'm not expecting anyone to have answers here. Even the three of us, like, not expecting us to even have the answers here. But like in the immediate term, what do we think like that accountability looks like, or what action can we take for the school to kind of alleviate this burden of like anti-bullying for LGBTQ students?
Well, I mean, it starts at home. It really does. It starts at home. It does, because no school is really doing a good job teaching LGBTQ plus anything.
Mm-hmm.
So to do this, we would need to overhaul so much about the school system, which we should. And she should say it. But the problem is that is such a huge thing that we need to start chipping away at it. So obviously small changes would be like, teach more queer coded, queer anything, whether they talk about sex ed, or talk about history, or talk about popular media, anything, whatever. But it starts at home. These little shits, these little fucking shit children hear what their little shit fucking parents are saying about all types of people. They're kids. They don't know any better. Can't really blame them for just absorbing what they hear from their parents and not having the critical thinking skills to challenge it, because schools don't really teach critical thinking in that regard as the way they should. Neither do the parents. So the kids just go and parrot everything they hear from their parents. And then they end up becoming little cunts because their parents are little cunts. So yes, I want the school board. I want the school board and the school system, especially there in that town, to really be like, we need to expand our students' experience and exposure to this shit. But we also have the conversation with the fucking parents, all parents. Sure, there are plenty of parents who are good people who are teaching their kids to be really tolerant and nice and not ignorant, but there are a ton of these little fuckers running around who aren't. And these parents don't realize, because the parents, most of the time, are aware of the fact that their actions do have consequences. They're still shit people. Kids don't really understand the gravity of certain things. Those kids that did that to this poor person is probably, they're horrible people, but they probably didn't understand the gravity of what was going to happen and how that was going to affect them, because they don't have that level of thinking yet. They're too young and naive. So we got to get these parents whipped into shape so then they can whip the kids into shape.
I agree with that. I also think there's so much, like Pat said, there is like a societal level overhaul that desperately needs to happen. And when we look at school districts, I mean, for one thing, funding is just a nightmare. So I do understand that schools are just inundated with responsibilities. I'm saying that in quotes, but I really do mean that. Like, they have a lot of responsibilities, and so many teachers who are underpaid and yet somehow responsible for raising these cunt children. And they can only do so much. So again, like funding with schools and how we allocate those funds, it makes me sad and angry in a lot of ways, because I'm like, if those schools who are in less densely populated areas, or maybe more rural, or the opposite, more urban, I think they could do a lot better if they had the adequate funding to expose their students to different cultures and different ideas, and I don't know, take trips. Like, fuck all this standardized testing. I'm so sick of it.
Well,
Honestly,
true.
though, I would much rather have a course taught on queer shit than any standardized test. But of course, the one thing that I just need to briefly mention is that the moment you do try to change these schools and how they present queer things to students, that's when you get the fucking Republicans going, you can't teach that shit in my school because it's pedophilia. And I'm just like,
yeah.
I mean, people are still opposed to teaching sex ed in like high school.
I was just going to say that.
No, it's so fucking clinical too. It's like, so the penis goes in the vagina and then a baby comes out. But sex is only for making babies and nothing else.
Oh yeah, obviously.
I'm just like,
because God is watching.
God is watching.
Am I getting pregnant?
You could be.
I tried.
Like kids
I mean, from that dildo that you have.
Well, it's kind of thin.
All right. I do want to talk about one other thing, because Pat, you mentioned the other students and if they should be held accountable. Yeah. That was another question that we asked.
Yeah.
And 89% of our respondents said that the students who fought Nex in the bathroom should be held accountable for the death. Now, again, this was before the autopsy.
Right.
Said it was a suicide. So that response could change. Yeah,
so my question is,
yeah,
do we think that they should be held responsible for the death, specifically the death, or should they be of course, at the very least, they should be held responsible for the physical violence. But do we blame them for the death of this person?
I don't necessarily think that you have to blame them for the death. I don't think that and taking accountability go hand, like, they don't have to go hand in hand. Regardless, I do think they should be held accountable on some level, multiple levels. Not necessarily, I mean, it's wild because there are so many other cases where like kids have been, minors have been tried as adults and everything. And I'm not necessarily advocating for that for this case, but I do think there needs to be some sort of serious consequence. And I'm not even talking jail. Like, honestly, there should be a lot more. This is a whole other subject. Reform type programs for, people who have done something, who need to pay retribution, whether it be like volunteering with an LGBTQ group, etc. But I absolutely do think those little shits should be held accountable.
Yeah, because if it wasn't for their behavior, do we think that Nex would be alive?
Right. I do.
Well,
again, from my very limited perspective, it seems like those things, this bullying that had been going on for like a year, they go hand in hand. There's only so much that a person can tolerate and withstand and have those kind of, like rallying words, like, just hang in there.
It gets better.
Gets better.
Oh, God.
Before it just, it stops having an impact on your immediate, day to day.
Yeah. Yeah. And even let's assume that the death was a suicide, according to the autopsy report. Even then, I still think that the students still played a role in that suicide.
Absolutely.
That event of the fight is probably what drove that to occur. Or at least be the catalyst of it. So, I mean, I still think they should, in some ways, be held accountable for it. In what ways? Yeah, maybe, like you said, Jackie, maybe there, I don't think jail. Like, I don't know about that.
Jail.
But, like, yeah, there definitely should be other reform programs or something that would be more suitable for something like this.
Yeah.
It reminds me, it takes me back to 13 Reasons Why, when that was a big show about bullying, right?
Yeah.
About suicide, and thinking about ways of taking accountability for that. No, did that show portray that perfectly? No, but it's just what I'm thinking of.
I didn't see that show or read the
Mhm.
book. So I'm assuming that there's some kind of like social retribution that those people who played a role in.
The book doesn't explore that, but the show certainly did.
Really interesting.
Well, the book takes place over one evening.
Oh.
The series is a lot more. The series is very, very different than the book.
Oh.
Huh. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and there's a lot of it does explore. We're not going to get into it right now.
No. Yes. So the social aspect is explored in one of them. Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
All right. So continuing on this line of accountability. So this school, to add some context, this school, Awasa High School, was targeted by a pretty controversial right-wing account online called Libs of TikTok.
Oh no.
Owned by the one and only Chaya Raichik. I hope that's
who?
Chaya Raichik. So this account, Libs of TikTok, is very well known for singling out basically queer people, including queer teachers, putting them on blast on social media, and claiming that they're groomers. And this will typically lead to that queer teacher being ousted, or bomb threats going to the schools, bomb threats at libraries who host drag queen story hours, things like that.
So it's like they're like doxing, but kind of worse. And I didn't think that doxing could get worse.
It's doxing in a way. So the way that she like frames it is that, oh, all of these videos and stuff that I'm putting out there are public. So I'm just putting them on blast.
Yeah.
And sending my right-wing mob of followers at them. But that's they dox themselves because the videos already exist.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
But obviously it's not in good faith.
Right. It's yeah.
Yeah, it's still horrible.
It is horrible. Okay.
Yeah.
So this person, Chaya is her name. 2 years ago, 2022, she targeted a queer teacher who worked at this school.
Oh.
And after that, he was harassed, sent death threats. So eventually he resigns. And since then, Oklahoma has now implemented a transgender bathroom ban, which will force, everybody to use the bathroom of their assigned sex at birth.
Yeah.
So I asked respondents in this survey, I said, do they think, did Oklahoma's transgender bathroom policy play a role in Nex's death? 84% agreed with that. And I asked if Chaya Raichik should be held accountable for Nex's death, and 62% agreed with that. Now, here's the question. Because this was a big topic around this time period that the survey was going on. Do you think that the connection between Chaya and that event 2 years ago and Nex's death is strong enough that we can kind of assign some sort of blame to her?
No. Did this person on TikTok post about Nex prior to their death?
Not Nex specifically, no. But the teacher didn't know Nex, so there's like a line.
But I don't think we can. I mean, this person's a cunt and should stop and should not exist in society. This TikTok person is really awful. But I don't think we can blame this TikTok person. I mean, there are trolls on the internet and they do cause damage, but this is a little. It's getting to like third or fourth degree away from the situation where I think it's kind of they're horrible, but I think the trans ban about the bathroom thing, that's way more associated with this.
Yeah.
Than because that is palpable, tangible evidence that your state or your town does not like trans people. And if you're young and you internalize that, you don't like trans people. So when you see someone in a bathroom, whether it's the bathroom they're supposed to be in or the bathroom they're not supposed to be in, but you know that they're non-binary or trans, you already are not going to like them in there.
Yeah.
So I think that's a way closer association we can make than this horrible cunt on TikTok.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think legally it would be a stretch. I'm a lawyer now, by the way.
Yeah.
Legally it would be a stretch, but a part of me does hold that person like it is. They're not responsible, but they're all within like this shit sphere of suck for this
Sphere of
poor
suck.
person, the sphere of suck for this poor person whose life was centered around Owasu High School. So she's not responsible, but she's not responsible. But she's a cunt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's kind of like you said, Pat. It's like a third or fourth degree connection. Like she did make it things worse, I believe, for
Yes.
queer people in that school
Yeah.
by getting this teacher ousted, and that probably contributed to a poorer culture around like how people are perceived
Hmm.
queer people in that school. But is the through line connected enough where we can be like she should be held accountable? I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's a little. I mean, she's definitely horrible, and she should stop. That's for
She
damn
should
sure.
stop.
Yeah, she's a cunt. And you know that there's another layer. There's another wrinkle. Apparently, I don't know the exact title that she was given, but she was brought on as like a counselor for the Oklahoma like library
Wait, this
council.
horrible cunt person?
Yes.
She's based in Oklahoma?
No.
What?
She does not live in Oklahoma, but Oklahoma gave her this position of power on the library board in order to get her say in what's appropriate to show
Oh
Oh my
god.
in
god.
libraries.
Well, we just gonna give her a fucking key to the city next? Like, what are we doing here?
I'll need to look up what title they give her. It's like
Cunt?
I don't know, kind of cunt. Yeah.
It's probably something about cunt.
Another wrinkle though, like why they elevated her to this position is
Yeah.
even though she doesn't live in Oklahoma is beyond me.
Well, you know why? It's because she has traction.
Oh yeah,
Somebody on that library committee board was absolutely like right wing on TikTok and just being like, you know what we need? We gotta get this bitch in here.
Yeah.
you know what we need.
Yeah.
All right, one more on this kind of accountability vein.
Hmm.
So 76% of our respondents said that the Biden administration is not doing enough to protect LGBTQ plus people.
Yeah.
Now, 76% is a lot of the community. And it seems like our community is feeling like these politicians who are supposed to be on our side, the Democrats, right? And they feel like they're not doing enough. And we're in an election year. So we know that Biden is underwater in the polls. He's pissed off a lot of people in a lot of ways. Israel, Palestine is an example at which he's pissed people off. If Biden wants to stand a chance against Trump, he's going to need the support of the queer community because we're a historically left-leaning group, and we can be a strong voting bloc if we coalesce with each other. So, general question is, what actions do you think the Biden administration can take to help persuade members of the queer community that he is actually fighting for them? Again, I don't expect you to have the answer. Just general thoughts, though.
I mean, he's definitely not doing enough. We can all agree on that, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I understand executive actions can like go so far, but they're also really good. So like, why can't he? I'm sure there's some political fucking governmental reason, but why can't he just be like, I'm writing an executive order. We can no longer have trans bathroom ban bills. Sorry. Like, obviously use more elegant language than that, but like, what is stopping him from? I understand like there's this whole precedent of like, we can't use executive power too much because then we look like a dictator. Okay, but then like Trump did a bunch of executive orders. He's kind of a dictator, it's like, but then we could do executive orders for like bombs and war and like horrible shit, but we can't do executive orders for like really like helpful shit.
Yeah.
So what is the truth?
And no, and you know, like an executive order to erase student debt. Yeah, I do think that there's a lot more that he could be doing. it is frustrating to live in a political landscape that is just hamstringed by itself.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
only real direction that we seem to be going in is one that's just sliding down towards the right. And it's frustrating to feel, especially as a person in a minority community, like we don't have a lot of leverage. We don't have a hand on the wheel. We are reaching for it, but we are not allowed to have a hand on the wheel to correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is it. I will say, I do feel that recently, thanks to, social media groups and our community kind of coalescing together and trying to make our voice heard, that they're seeing how powerful we can be, which is why we're getting things like, oh, the US is abstaining from the UN resolution so that the ceasefire in Gaza passes, for example. They're seeing that we're not happy with what's happening, for example, in Gaza. So I think that we can have a voice, but we have to, be proactive. We have to organize, and we have to make sure that they hear us.
But why did they abstain and not just say, yes, let's do a ceasefire?
Because of money. We talked about this in the last episode.
I know. It's so fucking...
Jackie's like, what's going on?
Yeah,
Jackie's
I
like,
couldn't
what's a
tell you.
podcast episode?
What's the UN?
Go on.
Okay. Last thing I wanted to talk about. I'll try to wrap this up so that Pat can leave us forever.
Just say you hate gay people.
I hate gay people.
Oh, I wanted to take a step back from the tragedy and really try to gauge how the community is impacted when things like this happen. I'm thinking events like this is not an uncommon occurrence, I think. Events like these do happen a lot. I'm thinking back to the Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016 as well. Back then, I was only 1 year out of the closet, I think. I was not really in tune with the community and the political landscape. I didn't have a lot of investment in the community. So this is the first time, at least from my perspective, that I'm seeing a really drastic response to a tragedy like this. So we asked some people, we asked the LGBT community in our survey if they agreed with this statement. Nex's death has negatively impacted my mental health. 58% agreed. So that's more than half of the respondents said that this event negatively impacted their mental health. That is, it's surprising to me to see how many people were impacted by this. And I also wanted to highlight that for transgender respondents, this was 72%.
Well,
so it's even higher. This event had even more of an impact on the trans community than for the cisgender gays that took this survey as well.
Yeah.
So, here's a question for the two of you. We could be vulnerable. Did learning about this event impact your mental health status at all?
Yeah, it did.
No.
I think...
Not for...
No.
This is gay.
Not to be a cunt.
No. I was going to let you go
No,
ahead.
go on first. You started.
Oh,
go first.
I was going to say that when I think about how I'm measuring a negative impact to my mental health is more about was I thinking about this topic? Was I thinking about this topic in a way that I could relate my own life experience to this? And for me, it was yes. And I thought about Nex Benedict's death, as well as the scenarios in which similar things could have happened to me. Or, not just even specific, but just anything can happen nowadays, especially when we go out to LGBTQ clubs, etc. So I think for me there is an increased fear, and it also just, it was sad to know that a young person's life was lost before they could, be free to be themselves away from Owasu High School. It just sucks.
Yeah.
What
were you saying, Pat?
I mean, it didn't negatively impact my mental health, maybe because I don't know, like it. I was unhappy for the person. I was sympathetic, obviously, and I guess I can try to be empathetic, but I've never been in a situation like that, so obviously I can't. I can only go so far. But maybe I'm desensitized from too much, or maybe I think it's just that. I mean, unfortunately, things going on in my life personally, I can only devote so much time to the world at large, and I have so much other shit going on that I have to handle. It's kind of hard to be focused on this sort of thing for too long, just because of the fact that A, it's so fucking depressing, and B, I also have depressing shit, which it does not mean we should be apathetic and stuff like that. Take the time to explore how you feel about certain topics, about things that happen, and then do your best to perpetuate some sort of, for lack of a better phrase, good vibes to make sure that this shit doesn't happen again. Try to change people in your life, that kind of stuff.
No, I think it's important to note too that one's own like emotional bandwidth is very important, because ultimately, if we are going to keep trying to enact change, we all have to be in a good mental space to do so and take care of ourselves. So I appreciate you, Pat. I appreciate that you, maybe did not have the space for it.
Oh, I appreciate you.
Oh, thanks, Mama.
I think one thing that you said, Pat, was interesting, and that you said you've kind of been desensitized to it, right?
Yeah.
It just makes me think about, now I'm starting to think about gun violence. How much gun violence there is in the United States, and us as living in the United States.
Yeah.
How we just hear about a mass shooting every week now. We're just like, yeah, I mean, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And how kind of desensitized to that we've become. I mean, there have been certain recent events that have struck more chords, like the Uvalde shooting, for example, because that was a school, like a classroom of children, which is obviously way more impactful. But yeah, I mean, the country experiences mass shootings every day. I feel like there's, always instances of these LGBTQ violent things happening. But I think Nex's story, specifically being a younger transgender individual or non-binary, if you want to put those together, you can, or if not. It's always sadder when it comes to younger individuals. So I think those stories end up having more impact on our well-being in general.
Did it affect your mental well-being? I don't know if you touched on that.
I would say it did for the first couple weeks afterwards, because it is a very sad story. Though, did it impact it as much as probably members of the trans community? Probably not. And speaking of that, I did also ask one more question of the community. I said, can you try to rate your mental health on a scale of 0 to 100 from before the event to afterwards? Because I wanted to see, like, approximately how impactful this was. Is it a perfect methodology? No, definitely not, because you're asking people to recall from 4 weeks ago how they felt.
Recency bias. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but overall, it was the median mental health score for the group was 52 beforehand and then 48 afterwards. So it was a 4-point drop. But for transgender individuals, the median before was 49 and the median after was 35.
Whoa.
So a 14-point drop.
And it was already low to start with.
Yeah.
It was already lower to start with.
Yes. Like, we're already, it's not good.
Yes. So I think it obviously highlights, when you see something happen to someone who is more like you, that will obviously impact you more. And obviously right now, transgender people are going to be more impacted by events like this because they are, as Pat said before, like the target or like the current demonization. So it makes sense that they would be more impacted by something like this happening. I think it's interesting to highlight these kinds of impacts. And it just shows how stark the difference is right now between how transgender people are treated versus just the gay people in general.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all that I have.
Wow.
Sorry
Well,
for that
thank you.
depressing topic.
Well, no, it needs to be talked about, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that we have the resources to one, do so, and two, be able to reach out to other people to kind of pull this data, and help interpret what's going on and maybe give it a different context or a new light.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. And I thought that each of you had a wonderful insight to add to the data that we presented here.
Oh,
you want me so bad. You want
What?
me so bad.
What?
Kudos to you, Mama. Thanks for spilling. No, I think I do share that sentiment as well. And I have a very deep empathy for young people right now who are going through really any school system. Because they're just horrible. Everyone is horrible. But especially as a LGBTQ plus member, it's rough out there.
It's really rough all the time.
Okay. Especially with that dildo that you got. I mean,
gotta use that lube. I was gonna say it. I was gonna say about the lube, but I was like, I'm not gonna do it. Like, we were just talking about this thing, and then here he comes.
Yeah.
Listen, I feel like the switch has turned already.
The switch has turned. Yeah, we said, okay, there's our stop.
Yeah, there's our serious stuff. Now we go back to the bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for listening and watching this episode of the Watch of the Gays Thing podcast. You can catch us again in another 2 weeks from now for another episode. We also sometimes do queer media analysis and reviews in what we call Under Queer Review. So keep an eye out for those episodes whenever they come out. If you want to join our survey panel to participate in our future research endeavors, head over to whatdothegaysthink.com and sign up.
Yeah.
And
get in on it.
And also at that website, I'm going to be trying to post, like when we do these research-based episodes, I'm going to try to post a blog report as well to kind of lay out all the survey results in more detail.
You just cannot help yourself with data, can you?
Oh,
no, I'm a slut for it.
I was like, what did I do? And yeah, you're talking to him. Yeah. I mean, he is a slut.
Yeah.
So look out for those blog reports. And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Threads at What the Gays Think for updates on when we post new episodes and for some, other fun content or whatever we decide to post.
Yes.
Thanks everybody for listening, and I am Matt.
I gotta keep it light, I guess, for this episode. And
I know.
I'm angry at children.
And I'm considering what do you call it? I'm considering mass sterilization.
Oh, not mat sterilization.
No, mass.
I'm considering mat sterilization.
And
I'm considering mat castration.
Oh,
you know what? I think we have something we can
and that's
work
the pod.
together.
And that's the pod, everyone.
That's the pod, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.